Hello, Amy.
Hello. How are you?
I'm excited and looking forward to our chat.
Absolutely. You want to just get started?
Whatever you say, you're the leader. I'm just here tailing you.
I love it. I love it. So, I'm just really excited to speak with you today because um, you're a giant in this industry and you should feel so proud of your accomplishments. Seriously, you've worked so.
I do very much, and one of the things that's been really fun and interesting, you pour your heart out, you do something for a long time, and then you write about it, and you don't know if anybody's going to give a rat's ass, and it turns out that people seem to care, and the book is having some impact, which obviously I knew that some of the shows I've been involved with were big hits, but uh when you use words like legendary and all that kind of talk, it's kind of humbling and at the same time kind of thrilling.
Oh, no doubt. This is the book that John's talking about, Right for the Role. You can get it on Amazon. Where else can they get it?
Barnes and Noble in Studio City has a couple of autographed copies. One
Oh,
of them,
that's
one
nice.
of them's in the window, and they can order it as well. And you can follow me on Instagram to see if I'm doing a live signing event somewhere. I've done several of those, and that way Jeff Bezos doesn't get all the money.
No kidding about that. It's
Yeah.
amazing how much percentage that they take. It's just ridiculous. So, you're a deep person, so we're going to talk about deep stuff. And that's what I got from the book, and that's what I got from your history is that you're a deep person. The you talked about the actor that you find that is your taste is somebody with charisma, electricity, attractiveness, sexuality, intelligence, humor, humanity, life force, and good manners. I mean, you could have all that, but if you're a crappy person, nobody's with you, right? Right. So the good manners thing is big. Have you watched Yellowstone?
I haven't. I'm sort of on a moratorium of watching television. I'm reading these days
Oh, that's nice.
instead of watching television. Although I did watch all of every second of Top Chef because
Yes, yes.
I love food and I have been in love with Padma for decades.
Yeah, she's just incredible. I watch all of those as well. It's very exciting, actually. I'm not a chef, but it's really great to see what they're doing. But I want to talk about the network. Kelly Riley is tremendous in Yellowstone. She plays Beth Dutton, and the network executive said that they weren't sure that women were going to relate to her. As it turns out, it's because of her that women keep coming back to the show. You pushed for Sean Hatasi. Is that how you say his last name?
Fantasy.
Hattasy. He started out on ER as a guest star and then all the way through Southland, and you kept casting him over and over. If the networks were having a problem with him for Animal Kingdom, since you've done upwards of like, I would say 500 to some, maybe more episodes as a casting director, don't you think that the network should start listening to the casting directors that have done that many proven episodes? Rather than go
You're
with
trying to
whatever.
get me buried 6 feet deep.
Well,
Um,
I don't want to
you
talk
know,
politics, but I want to talk about
no, no.
can we get them to understand what the people want?
Yeah, I mean, um, I agree with you conceptually that when John Wells or a producer of his stature says that this is who they want, uh, that should be enough. And John and I together have done, along with many other people, have done some work that's been historic. And I think that gives us, or ought to give us, not carte blanche because everyone can be wrong, but certainly a leg up in the conversation about who is and who isn't approvable. You know, I think, now that everything is on video or digital upload or whatever the hell it is, um, the networks all have casting departments that have to earn their keep, and so they now approve every part or don't, and to me that let me tell you a little story. We were doing a pilot at Fox, and a very nice man who was the executive there. I like him a lot. I really am fond of him. He said at some point that a one-line emergency medical technician who was in a scene for a quarter of a second or maybe a half a second wasn't approved. And I actually lost my stuff. And I said, I have cast more one-line emergency medical technicians than everybody else on the planet Earth combined. And he won't be on camera for longer than it takes you to blink your eye. The scene is about the other person who's the series regular, and eventually that person got approved. But sometimes when you argue too passionately or too vociferously, or if the Bronx in your background comes out, and you maybe say a nasty word or 12, you can get in a lot of trouble in this political climate that we're in today. And
Yes.
I have had my share of that because I have felt empowered by our success and to express our point of view um, forcefully. And you can't do that anymore, and it's kind of a shame. Passion, um, as long as it isn't rude and horrible, passion is an important part of what separates us from lawyers and doctors and insurance salesmen and other professions.
I completely agree with you. Why did they have such a problem with Sean since he was already a proven commodity? He was the star of
It
South.
wasn't so much that they had a problem with Sean as they wanted. We had Speedman and we had Ellen, and they wanted one more kind of sexy name. And Sean is a great actor and a
Yeah, I
wonderful,
totally get it. He's not a sexy name, but
yeah. And
but
so
who
the
else?
reason the
Who else
reason
could?
they made us wait to really talk about Sean was that they had a lot of ideas of sexy names, none of whom wanted to do it. We're grateful for that because Sean ended up, with both of Ellen and Scott leaving the show at one time or another. Sean became number one on the call sheet and was really the glue and the watchability and the crazy the spirit of Animal Kingdom was in his character, not alone, but
Because
greatly.
because he has chops. He has
Yeah,
chops. He handled it. He handled every single aspect of that role that not a lot of actors can handle.
you're absolutely right. It was a very hard job, and
Really hard role,
he did it great.
effortlessly. And
Well,
you cast
I
him
bet
in.
he wouldn't say it was effortless, but
No, no, but
maybe it looked that way.
he made it look effortless. And that's a
Yeah,
great actor.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
agree.
I'm a coach. I've had my school for 28 years. And of the people that have done really, really well, they have worked really hard to make their work look effortless,
Yeah,
like a gold skater and a
yeah.
little.
Well, I agree. I always say that. If someone says after you take a test, how was it? Was it hard? And if you knew the answers, it wasn't hard. And if you're prepared and talented and know how to access parts of yourself that are relevant to the circumstances of the character, it isn't hard. It's not hard to make it look easy because if you're prepared, talented, trained, it isn't that hard.
No, it shouldn't be. You should just jump, go, and see what happens,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just fly and see what happens. I want to talk to you about the essence of character. Dana Delaney versus Helen Hunt. Years ago, I wrote a movie called Odessa, and Yolanda King, the great Yolanda King, Dr. King's daughter, came in, and the character already had a pain that was already inherent in the character. And then this other woman came in, of which she looked like how I wrote the role, but Yolanda got it because of her essence and her inherent pain. And the character, you can't play that, it just is. So
Yeah, I
let's talk
agree.
about Dana Delaney versus Helen Hunt.
Well, they were both immensely talented. Helen has had a remarkable career in movies and elsewhere. I knew her dad when I was at the Taper in 1980. And this is not this isn't one person's great and the other person
No, 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 no,
wasn't
no.
great.
No,
But
I'm
you're
talking
quite
about
right.
this because actors need to know that yes, you think you could play everything, but when push comes to shove, at the final, it's going to be the essence of character that's going to win.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And in World War II, the average age of a soldier or a sailor or whatever was more than 27 years old. And in Vietnam, the average age of a soldier or sailor or marine or whatever was just over 19 years. And try to imagine how different you were between 19 and 27 uh, in terms of your maturity and your decision making and your ability to handle things. And I always said that Dana got that job and was wonderful in that job because if I was a 19-year-old boy 10,000 miles away from my mom, I would rather die in Dana's arms than anybody else's. And that's her quality. That's her essence. Um, she has a funny combination of sexuality and maternal instinct, nurturing, loving, and hot at the same time.
Yes.
And if you were a 19 or 20-year-old boy 10,000 miles away from home, um, those would be the arms you'd want to die in.
Well, I mean, I'm not gay, but I would have wanted to die in her arms.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
hot, and she was also very likable for women too.
Yeah, completely.
Helen, and so the difference between her and Helen is Helen doesn't have those properties that were needed in essence of the character.
I agree.
She could play the crap out of it, but she isn't that essence.
Exactly. She has a cooler demeanor, more reserved, less empathetic, perhaps, uh,
Yeah,
demeanor. And God knows what the truth is. I mean,
it doesn't matter.
we're in the illusion business, so who
Yeah,
cares?
doesn't matter. It's the feel of it. Whereas Helen could probably play a captain in an army, like a sergeant or a captain, a prosecuting attorney, where
Yeah,
Dana wouldn't be sold that way.
I think you're quite right. And people use the term type, and I hate it. I never use it. What's your
Yeah, I don't
type,
like that term either.
or what's your casting? I don't know. But I always say, what are your qualities? And and
Yes.
and how do you discover what your qualities are? How does the world treat you? This is something I've said 100 times. So if you're forgive me if you've heard it before, but if everybody tells you their secrets, you seem trustworthy. If no one tells you your secrets, you seem untrustworthy. If a young mother is standing in front of the elevator and the doors open and you're on the elevator and she hesitates to get on the elevator with her toddler child, you seem sketchy.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
something in your energy that she's
yeah,
not going to want to be a part of. I truly get that. Like, let's talk about Aaron Sorkin for a second. I went to
sure.
school with Aaron, okay? I know
At
him.
at Syracuse
Yeah,
University.
that's correct. He was a year older than me. He and I used to do scenes together. I was his scene partner, which was a blessing and a curse because he would yell at Arthur Storch and him would get into it, and I never got feedback because they'd end up fighting with each other, and he would storm out, and so yeah, I mean, genius. He's a freaking genius, but to be a scene partner was not genius. Uh, but cut to years later, my essence, I would never be on an Aaron Sorkin show because I'm too blue. He never hires anybody that's blue. They always look upper white, middle upper white class, pretty much.
Well, as brilliant as Aaron is, it's the casting that differentiates the characters because all his characters have his voice. Uh,
Yes,
and
yes,
then the only way you get the two, Josh and Sam, to be different is because Sam is Rob Lowe and Josh is Brad Whitford, and
that's correct.
then they start to become different because of their essence
Because of their essence and their
and
personality.
and their physicality.
Yes,
But on the page, they both have Aaron's voice.
yes, yes, which further emphasizes essence. Um, Aaron, I talk to my students a lot about, and I don't know why teachers aren't teaching this, but I talk a lot about you're not going to be on television unless you watch television. You won't be in the show unless you understand genre and tone. I don't care how great of an actor you are. And in an Aaron Sorkin show, all the way back to Studio 60, I've seen everything because, I know him. Um, there's a style. So if you don't understand how to speak Sorkin, you're not going to get the show. So
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
talk about genre and tone more, and
Well, I think a perfect example of that, Amy, is when ER premiered. At the same time, I'm sure you remember that Chicago Hope
Mm,
also premiered on the same night in the same time slot. We killed them. But they were like People magazine. Their pilot episode, I believe, had conjoined twins that needed to have a miracle surgery to separate them. And we were the Daily News. We were, people who didn't have private physicians, who had no place else to go but the ER when something happened, when their kid was sick, or when their delivery was going crazy, or we did stories that were, about regular folks, and they were doing stories about uh, irregular folks.
yeah, I think that you were the pioneer of shifting our focus from Dallas and Knots Landing, right, to something a little bit more raw and eccentric and an American reality of
I
television.
agree completely. Yeah, and I mean, I think Hill Street did it, and Saint Elsewhere did it first, but we contributed greatly um, to television becoming more like life,
Yes.
and that opened the door for casting people who weren't so fabulous. I mean, Clooney was fabulous,
Did
but
Clooney
the
have a
patient,
did Clooney have a network deal?
he had a Warner Brothers holding deal.
You did. Yeah. Do they do that anymore?
I don't think they do it quite as often now that they can get movie stars to do stuff on cable and on the streaming services.
Yeah.
Um, they don't have to.
Yeah, no, because I know that that was a big deal back in the day,
Yep,
um,
sure
the
was.
holding deals. Um, I don't know if you know this, but I was a manager for 9 years. I owned Gold Levin Talent, and I put Adam Brody on the OC. So
Uh-huh.
back in the day, which is, let's talk back in the day for a second. More than three-quarters of our day was stuffing envelopes and writing cover letters. And
And most of my day was unstuffing those same envelopes,
yes, and trying not to get killed by the staple,
or
right?
or or just paper cuts.
Yes, paper cuts And then they had the see-through envelopes. Remember those? Like actors thought that you'd be more interested. And then the couriers used to drop it in the front, and actors would be able to drop their pictures in a bin and
Right.
send them in the mail. Um, so you talked in your book about having your floor filled with 8x10s, and I want to know, what do you miss about those times?
Well, you know, uh, I'm quite a bit of a Luddite. I've learned how to do Zoom because I've had to, and
Mm,
I now text my children since it's the only way that they'll talk to me. Um, so I've learned a few things, and technology certainly is a great boon to convenience, efficiency, speed, all of those kinds of things. It's fantastic. But for me, and I'm old school, um, the thing I miss is the thing we're really working on, and that is the stories of human beings. And to have less human contact and less intimate human contact, and I don't mean sex, I mean the kind of live exchange that happens in a casting session between actors and readers and directors and producers and writers, uh, where everybody's vulnerable and hoping that their work is gonna pass muster. And now I think it's kind of preposterous that we're trying to live in the swamp of humanity with almost no human contact.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that.
I
Uh,
don't think anybody under 35 cares, but those of us who haven't seen 35 in a while um, uh, truly miss each other. And on top of the pandemic, which isolated us all from each other so much and put us in fear of each other, and the political climate, which also has us and the other as part of it. Um, all
yeah,
of those things tend to separate us into a kind of tribal existence, a segregated existence, even though we're desperately talking about inclusion, diversity, and authenticity. In a weird way, we don't get to experience each other, um, and people who are different from us in some significant way, religious, political,
I
you know.
completely agree with you. There's no sit down. There's no
Yeah,
sit down anymore. Back in the day, Barbara Clayman was a big fan of mine. And I used to sit down with her, and she goes, Amy, come into my office. And we would smoke together, you know. We would hang out and smoke together. But she got to know me. You understand?
yeah.
And so I believe, and then she threw me out on everything. She cast me in a whole bunch of stuff back in the day. And she knew me. Like, how do you know somebody from a computer? Like, how can you feel that? How could you know somebody if they're not in front of you? You know?
Well, it's harder, but it is possible.
Yes.
Um, I'm getting to know you right now, and I think that you and Barbara got along well because you almost are as raspy as she was.
Absolutely. I loved her. She taught me a lot.
Yeah, she taught me a lot as well. She was the first person who hired me in casting. She was a extremely difficult person, but that was really part of what was exciting about working for her, was that you never knew who was coming out of the office after lunch.
If she liked you, then she really liked you. You
Yeah,
know, like you
and
knew.
if she was pissed off at you, you could hear it ringing in your ears for a couple of days.
Yeah, yeah, there was no going back. That was it. You're done.
Yeah,
You got to step up from some really great casting directors took you under their wing, you know? What did you have? Marsha Kleiman and Uh, who else did you work with?
Phyllis Huffman.
Ellis Hoffman. Wow. Yeah, and
Yeah.
these people, they really like as if like you would help an actor, they helped you as a casting director.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Marcia was the greatest teacher of anything that I ever was under in my life, whether it was in school or on the football field or wherever.
What was it
Uh,
about? What was it about her that impressed you?
um, she cared about taste. She was very much in charge, but she let you cut some ice. And then she would slap you if you did something stupid or kiss you if you did something great. And, she valued the people who worked for her. And as a result, uh, you could absorb from her. And she had the best taste. I mean, and she was combative in a great way. She was an advocate. She taught me uh, that it was okay to say what you thought, even if you didn't get your way. You went down swinging in a way, or you went down caring in a way, and sometimes, I
Oh,
mean,
that makes you part of the process. You know,
exactly.
the
Well,
network can be brutal.
that's the best way of saying it. She included me,
Yeah, she included you as part of the entire process. And what's
and therefore
interesting,
she got benefit of me.
yeah,
Other people, but Barbara Kleinman was much more of an autocrat, and so she didn't get as much contribution from me as Marcia did. Um,
which is what made Marcia a great teacher. Okay,
yeah,
so that's the difference. There's somebody that just takes you on, and then somebody that shows you the way. And so I think that's what Marcia did for you.
yeah, absolutely. I loved her. She also was a big collector of modern American art, and including Cindy Sherman's early photographs that she bought, and she had some paintings that were in MoMA, I think, that were
Really?
part of her collection when she died. I
Wow.
think they may still be there. I don't know for sure, but so she taught me the value of getting interested in stuff you weren't naturally interested in, and broadening your. It's like you grew up in the deli. Go have Indian food. If you like baseball, go to the opera. Pretty much that's the contribution Marcia gave to me, which
I love
was,
that. She was like,
round yourself out, care about something you don't care about, learn something you have no aptitude for, respect the guy who's fixing your car because he has a skill you are willing to pay for because you don't have it.
I love that. I love that. She sounds like she was an incredible guide for you, you
He was
know?
great.
Yeah. Let's, there's a couple of things that I really want to ask you about. I want to talk about complexity of character. Takes a creative mind to make something that's magic out of what is invisible, is what you said. Can you speak to that?
Did I say that? God, that
Yeah, see
sounds
how
so.
genius you are? That was really
That,
good.
that sounds so much smarter than I am.
Yeah, you're really smart. I okay, and then like to say what that what isn't said. I'm continually telling my actors that are auditioning for streaming shows and feature films, AMC and FX, depending on the network, to listen and slow down, and it's okay in the silence.
Oh God, yeah. We always say, uh, Wells and I have said over the years, wow, not only did she read the hell out of that scene, but she was participating in the ancient art of listening. And that is the silences. I mean, go back to the playwrights, like Albee and Pinter. They choreographed the pauses, even to the point of the length of the pauses. Um, and then you, as an artist, have the responsibility of filling that with something, with what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're connected to. And the wonderful thing about film and television is that you don't have to play to the fifth balcony. The mic and the camera will find you and reveal you, and they'll reveal if you're not thinking anything except waiting for your next line. Um, you know, filling those silences with your thoughts and your feelings and your connections is really where the magic of acting is. Um, Anybody can say "I love you" and sort of mean it.
Yeah, I've heard that a bunch of times.
Yeah, and
They
they
sort
sort
of
of meant it.
they sort of meant it. Yeah, I talk to my students a lot about punctuation.
Mm,
Um, uh, but that's how the character speaks. And within that, and a lot of them come from the school of throwing out punctuation. And I'm like, the character has to come first, and then
sure.
there's you. And so if you keep putting yourself first, you're going to sound like you in everything, and I'm never going to see the character.
Yeah, well, there are some actors, even some stars,
Ugh.
that do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And then there are the best actors. You mentioned Sean, and the thing about Sean is that he's a character actor. He happens to be a handsome man, but he immerses himself in the circumstances and the psychology of the state of being, the emotional reality of the character, and then he finds ways to draw on himself uh, and his technique. You know, as you well know, actors have their essence, their bodies, their voices, and their training, their experiences, and their imagination, and not much else.
Hmm.
When I say not much else, I'm not saying it isn't enough, but I'm saying you have to have the ability and the willingness to access your training, your imagination, your experiences, your body, and your voice.
Well, I think that a lot of actors don't realize that their whole being is actually an emotional instrument. And
Yeah,
they spend a lot of time on action or stuff that puts them in their head, and they don't spend enough time on where the emotions are located within their body so they can
yeah,
play their own instrument
yeah. Well, and
themselves
I,
in the
I
moment.
completely, yeah, I completely agree. And actors, I think, are unique among artists because they are both the instrument and the player of
Yes.
that instrument. You know, the piano players have 88 keys, and if they're in tune, you can reliably touch them and they'll make a certain sound. Painters have a palette and an easel of one kind or another, a canvas. Photographers have the instrument and they can learn to manipulate it. Every other kind of artist has some external thing which they have to learn how to play. But with our artists, the artists that we're interacting with, they're both.
They are both. And I tell people till I'm blue in the face ad nauseum. I don't care if you're off book. I care if you're the character. And if you
Yeah,
don't spend
I mean, I think
enough
it's
time,
important to memorize things for auditions, and obviously, when you do them, you know Aaron Sorkin. If you say the wrong word, you're dead in the
well,
water.
you will be off book if you take the time to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's the first thing you have to memorize is the internal emotional and intellectual needs that the
Yes,
characters have in each beat of the scene.
that's
And if
correct.
you and then the words will follow with a lot of ease.
Naturally, they will
Yeah,
flow naturally.
yeah,
One of my guidelines is guideline 10, which is how do I hear what the other character says from my character's point of view? And that's actively listening from your point of view,
yeah,
which is life. right? And I feel a lot of actors, they're so focused on not on getting it right that if they would be focused on what's coming at them,
Yep.
it would be more in the scene.
My first acting teacher, who sadly was not able to penetrate my not knowing much about myself and not being free enough,
Mm.
he always used to say, "Your performance is over there, not here, over there, with who you're talking to,
Mm.
and what they're saying." And then we used to do a hopelessly stupid exercise where we would have a small pillow and we would toss it to each other. And the idea was watch it while it's in the air, catch it, receive what it was, decide what you were going to do about it,
And
and
then
toss it back.
and then throw it back.
And that
That's
that
scary.
that a dialogue involves all of that
Yes,
catching and assessing and planning and reacting and hearing and receiving all of that. And that's hard to do, say, in a Sorkin piece because it demands that pace.
you just have to do it faster.
Yeah,
So
you
then
got to do it.
you just got to do it faster. So when you're studying, you have to study with the pace. So I always tell people to study your transitions, stop studying your lines, study your
Yeah,
transitions. Because
yeah,
a great skater, a great, because I always talk about being an Olympic actor and what that's about. And it's effortlessly going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And based on who the writer is, you have to go at that pace, so study at that pace. Don't just
yeah,
sit down and study and then you think all of a sudden it's going to show up. It's not
yeah.
always, it's not going to show up. You have to study that way. So I think a lot of actors don't have the right homework protocol.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. That's the preparation. And if you prepare, in I'm a bit of a cook. If you prepare, you cut up everything and you do your mise en place, and you have what you where the onions are going to go into the pot, and when the fish is going to how long, and all of that, and you have the beats planned, it'll come
Yeah,
out good.
exactly. Because it goes under the heading of knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, preparation,
Yeah,
planning.
planning, knowing
But
what,
not planning in the sense of guiding the river or knowing what the right, I've got, oh shit, I got to cry here.
no.
Uh,
If you
y-
understand and you've rehearsed the plan, it's time to let it go.
yep,
Like,
yep.
see what happens. Trust in your plan.
And trust in your imagination and your training and all of that.
Yes. And then stuff will happen that you didn't even plan, which is when the exciting stuff happens, is what you did,
Absolutely.
you
We
know?
we used to there was another exercise in the early acting classes that I did where they said do it wrong. Like
Yeah, I like
answer
that.
answer the phone wrong. Remember when Marlon Brando turned a chair around and sat on it like it was either a lover or a horse or something other
Yeah.
than a chair. And that's not the way you're supposed to sit in a chair. Your mom told you to sit up straight and with your back against the back and your butt against the seat. And but then there's a more interesting way to tell something about you, uh, to find a way to do it wrong.
Well, that moves into the physical too. I believe that, in England, they go from the physical to the interior. We go from the interior to the physical. I think it needs to be a lot of both. I
Yeah,
don't think
I mean,
actors are
I know
capable.
actors who have 100 pairs of shoes, and one of their most important parts of their preparation is which shoes to put on, because
Absolutely.
in one pair of shoes, their whole body changes,
Absolutely.
compared to another one. I
It's how you
know
walk.
actresses
Yes.
who aren't going to take their clothes off, but who wear their red underpants for a flirty scene because it makes them connect to their red underpants.
I love, I want to see that. I want to see those red underpants.
Well,
Um,
nowadays you see everything.
I know. Um, let's we also have Dennis Cockrum, who I love.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, love him. I played his wife in a show called Eagleheart. He's just incredible. And
He played the only person in the world who's worse than Frank Gallagher on Shameless.
yeah, which is that's hard to say, you know.
Yeah,
The guy
but
was
you know what's wonderful is that he's a lovely man,
oh
and so
so
he was able
nice.
to access that blue, racist, anti-Semitic, gay bashing, violent piece of shit,
Yeah.
and be none of that.
Well, then that's why God gave you an imagination.
Exactly.
And you know, if you're, I always tell people if you're a prostitute, it's really hard to play one because it's just too close, you know. So, you know, so you're from the Bronx
I grew
originally.
up in Riverdale in the Bronx, but you know,
I lived in Riverdale
you
when I was
did.
a child. Yeah, when I was a child, I lived in Riverdale.
I went to the Fieldston School in Riverdale, and I
Hmm.
lived around the corner from the Riverdale Country Day School.
And where did you live there your whole childhood? When did you move?
I lived in Riverdale my entire childhood, and then um, after my parents separated, then my mom got a Fulbright fellowship. She was a scientist, and she went to Africa at the same time that I went to college. So
Wow.
there was no going home at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. So you were like an orphan. Did you go to other people's houses? Like
I
your
did.
roommates, you know?
I made friends.
Yes, very fast. You're like, hey, what are you doing Thanksgiving?
What are you
Okay,
doing tonight?
I'm John Frank Levy. What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, when I was a kid, we used to go down to Pittman Avenue in the Bronx and get nickel bags, and it was like a little it was like a candy store. We literally
Uh,
drove down there from New Rochelle. I grew up in New Rochelle.
uh,
And we used to drive down there and just get a nickel bag. And then at that time, joints were like $1 a joint, you know? I don't even know what it is now because I don't smoke anymore. But that's and then it's but I lived in Riverdale until my family moved to New Rochelle.
well, there we have all that in common.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So is there anything that you want to talk about like why you wrote the book or where you are now and what you're working on?
Sure. Um, you know, I wrote the book. I did a podcast for another acting teacher in town, and after we talked for whatever amount of time it was, she said, "God, your stories are so funny and smart and good, and they really would be beneficial to actors and also to other people. You should write a book." And I said, "Oh, for Christ's sake, shut up." Um,
How'd you meet
and
Trudy?
what?
How did you meet Trudy? She's a friend of mine. I told you
Oh,
we
she
have a
is?
lot of friends in common. And
Yeah. Well,
I also know Jeff Kober.
Trudy had written a book with this acting teacher that I'm referencing, and so Sherry Shaw is who I'm talking
Oh,
about.
I
And
know Sherry. Yeah.
she introduced me to Trudy, who had helped her with her book. And you know, it was the height of the pandemic, so we didn't meet for quite a while. But she gave me the assignment of typing an email memory at least once a day, and I caught fire. I just started remembering stuff. One memory really begat 10 others, and I sent her a lot of emails every day. Eventually, we met, and she interviewed me, and recorded things, and then we talked about structure and uh, decided to do it sort of chronologically by my life and then by shows. And and at a certain point, she said something along the lines of, you know, if you want people to care about what we're creating here, you're going to have to be willing to reveal more personal stuff.
Mm,
And I'm a very private guy. I'm not a big schmoozer. I don't I haven't had lunch with agents and managers more than maybe 20 times in 35 years.
mm,
Uh, you know, I'm just not, I'm not that public. And so it was hard for me to be willing to do that. But I did. And I think the best compliments that I've gotten about the book from people who know me, friends, family, is that the book reads like sitting around talking to me.
Ah,
And and that I think Trudy really found my voice and was able to capture it, and therefore my opinions and thoughts and observations and experiences got more resonance than I expected. There'd be no book without Trudy Roth.
yeah, she's a
And,
very
and
inspiring.
and the best part about that is that I have a new, really good friend.
She's a really good person, like
She
a
is
like a really good person.
absolutely,
Yeah,
and it completely reads in the way she approaches, the way she approached me.
yeah. The layout is really good. The
Yeah,
layout, easy read, and it takes you on a journey, which is great.
yeah, and
When a lot of people, a lot
the
of people
other thing,
don't know Hollywood. I think it educates them about Hollywood. To tell you the truth.
somebody who isn't in Hollywood at all read it. A guy who lives in Santa Fe, who's an archaeologist and a family friend of my longtime partner Karen Cease, and he ordered the book and read it, and his wife called Karen and said uh, that he really loved it because it wasn't a bitch off and Hollywood tell all, and that it was
Yeah,
actually that it made Hollywood seem like a nice place. And that's the other part of the book that I always want to stress, and that is that I found my role in a community of people who believe in and value respect and collaboration and empowering each other, trusting each other to do their part, and that if we create community and respect and collaboration, we can make something that's better than the sum of our parts. And I've had an opportunity to do that a, a lot of times in my professional life, and that is an outgrowth of my sort of hippie youth, because I believed in that. I believed in that on the basketball team in high school. I believed in that in the theater communities that I was a part in. Um, it's not a new idea, but teamwork, collaboration, and community and mutual respect are the avenue towards excellence.
I could not agree with you more.
And
Absolutely.
and not everybody gets to be the quarterback, or the leader or the one who it's named after. But if you're lucky, or maybe it's more than luck, but you find the role that you're right for, the role that allows you to maximize your contribution, that is damn good fortune.
We're gonna end it there because that was just freaking brilliant. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and it was so much fun bumping into you at that event
I
in
know.
in Burbank.
I
Uh,
know.
um,
I many, many years ago when I was a little young actor. Yeah, because I mean I've been in Hollywood a long time.
Me too.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate you.
Thanks. And for your listeners, the book is available on Amazon as an ebook, as a paperback, and as a hardcover. I'm on Instagram, John_Frank_Levy. Don't forget that second pesky E. And you can follow me on Instagram and find out where I might be doing a live book signing event. I've done several, and uh, that's a lot of fun for me to see you in person and and pound the flesh with each other.
I love that. Pound the flesh. That's so Bronx.
Yeah, well, there you go.
All right.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.